Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance. My name is Chaz Andres, and as always, let's get started with the news. And the biggest story of this week, well, how about the fact that last week's Modern crash is behind us already? Hooray, that is really good news. So, I'll be honest here, friends, I was a little bit worried about this one. See, last fall, I was the person who was preaching reason, because this crash happens every year when people sell their Modern stuff to buy into Standard, and I was telling you to be patient and that prices would rebound, and September turned into October, which turned into November, which turned into December, and prices still didn't come back. And yeah, we know what happened there, right? It was the fact that Arena came around and everybody got scared, and now we know that MTGO and Arena can coexist, at least for now. But still, I didn't want to be the person yet again telling you to be patient, when in reality you should have been panicking. But now I feel pretty good saying that at least the worst of this fall crash is over. The best part is that we didn't even have to wait a week. Granted, the Modern Index hasn't really started to rebound yet, but there are multiple Modern cards that were up double digits this week, and no Modern card that dropped in price even as many as 5 tickets. And last week's two biggest losers, Force of Negation and Wrenn and Six, are either stable or up slightly this week. These are all signs to me that the market is at the very least stable, if not ready to rebound. It's not the signs of a market that's going to keep on tumbling. So if you're waiting for the bottom to buy into Modern, this is probably as good as you're going to get. Let's move on now to gaining ground, where in Standard it was Teferi Time Raveler gaining 8 tickets from 34 up to 42. And at first glance, this seems like yet more seesawing for one of the more volatile cards in Standard, but honestly there's more stability here than you might think. The card has dropped into the low 30s a couple of times over the past couple of weeks, but those drops have been temporary, and it's rebounded back past the 40 ticket mark every time. I honestly think there are bright days ahead for Teferi. It sees a ton of play across multiple formats. It's low supply since there were not a lot of people drafting War of the Spark on MTGO. My one worry though is that this set is about to leave the set redemption window. It is past the guarantee date, and the cutoff date is about 2 weeks away. So even though I predict good things for Teferi, I am personally holding off until late October just to make sure that this thing doesn't tank at some point as soon as the redemption window ends. Let's move over to Modern now, where the biggest gainer of the week was Urza, Lord High Artificer, gaining 12 tickets from 20 up to 32. And this shouldn't come as much of a surprise to anybody. Urza is of course the key piece in 4-color Urza, one of the best decks in Modern right now, but the real reason for this gain is Paradoxical Urza, the wild new combo deck that is taking Modern by storm. And yes, this deck is a little bit of a meme deck, but honestly the results are there, and plus it looks super fun, so a lot of people just want to try this one out. It's a lot like playing Vintage or Legacy in Modern. I highly recommend you giving it a shot. Anyway, most of the Modern cards that saw significant rises this week are Paradoxical Urza pieces. It's cards like Prismatic Vista and Mox Amber. Are these pieces going to come crashing back down again next week? I don't think so, but that is a risk. It sort of depends how the metagame adjusts to this deck. If it remains very good, or at least very fun and viable, I think these pieces are going to be okay. Regardless, I think Urza has a bright future. It is clearly one of the cornerstones of Modern, and I expect it to be over the 40 ticket mark at some point this month. Let's move on now to our biggest losers, where in Standard it was Questing Beast, dropping 3 tickets from 10 down to 7. And this card was as high as 17 tickets a week and a half ago, mostly because it was the second most expensive card in Throne of Eldraine in the world of Paper Magic. But of course, this is the exact sort of card that ends up being kind of expensive in Paper Magic and not at all expensive in Magic Online. For starters, I don't think it's going to see much play beyond Standard. And also, quite frankly, I'm not sure how much play it's actually going to see in Standard. It looks like an overrated card right now. I haven't seen it show up in a lot of the exciting new lists, and unless that changes in a hurry, I think this one is going to be coming down across all formats. Now, mythics like Questing Beast can end up being worth a lot on MTGO, but that requires the economics of set redemption to set in, and pretty much it doesn't happen as long as there are any other good cards in the set. Right now, there are things in Throne of Eldraine like, Oko, or Brazen Borrower, or Once Upon a Time, that seem like they have a lot better bets at maintaining their value, which doesn't bode well for something like Questing Beast. Yes, if it ends up seeing quite a bit of play in Standard, it will end up going up in price a little, or at least maintaining its value. but if that doesn't happen, there really is no floor here. This could be a 2 to 3 ticket mythic rare. So honestly, unless you're a big Questing Beast believer, I would be selling this card at current retail. Yes, even though not a lot of people want it. Let's move on now to our biggest loser in Modern, which was Surgical Extraction, losing 4 tickets from 17 down to 13. And this is quite the continued tumble for a card that was at one point the most expensive Modern card in all of MTGO. Surgical Extraction was as high as 65 tickets back in March of this year. It was sort of single-handedly keeping the MTGO Modern economy going for a while, and now it's down to just 13 tickets. Of course, there are really good metagame reasons why this happened. First, Leyline of the Void sort of stepped in as the better graveyard removal spell in Modern based on the decks that were seeing the most play, and then a lot of those decks were banned because Hogak and Faithless Looting went away, and at this point there just isn't a lot for Surgical Extraction to do. Honestly, I do expect a rebound here at some point. Graveyard strategies are going to make a comeback in Modern, they'll find a way one way or another, and this card will be expensive again. But I don't think it's right around the corner, and that means that you can wait for this card to continue to drop in price. Sub 10 tickets at this point seems inevitable, and I would wait at least until this thing dropped below 10 tickets before I bought it. The sneak of the week this week is Nurturing Peatland from Modern Horizons. Nurturing Peatland has climbed about 5 tickets over the past couple of weeks, it's gone up from 3 to 8, and it's continuing to rise. This card actually sees quite a bit of play in Modern right now, including decks like Jund and Hardened Scales and Traverse Shadow and, several other Rogue Brews, pretty much anything that uses black and green. It shouldn't come as a surprise that some of these Horizon lands are starting to increase in price. They're very good, they're scarce, they should be more expensive than they are. That said, lands on MTGO can sometimes be sort of economically weird, so who knows what's going to happen here. But honestly, I'm definitely going to start buying into this one. Let's end the week by taking a look at the MTGO Trader's sales data over the past 7 days. And as always, this gives us a great idea of which cards you're buying and selling the best right now, regardless of price increases or decreases. Looking at overall sales by volume, the biggest winner this week by a wide margin was Mystic Sanctuary. And that makes a lot of sense, because Mystic Sanctuary is probably the most impactful Modern card in all of Throne of Eldraine. So why haven't we talked about it much on this video series? Well, because it's a common, there's not a lot of financial action to be taken. Definitely buy a set or two, but new set commons, even if they see a ton of play in Modern, don't tend to be worth a lot on MTGO. Moving on from that, we've got other multi-format staples from Throne of Eldraine, cards like Deafening Silence and Drown in the Loch that appear destined to see a lot of play across multiple formats. I would also say definitely pick these cards up at some point, but they're uncommon, so just like Mystic Sanctuary, there's not a ton of financial gain to be had here. Now, the best-selling rare of the week by volume, well, that honor belongs to my old friend Charming Prince. Charming Prince is just 1 ticket right now. 1 ticket. That is not much for a card that might end up actually seeing play in multiple great decks across multiple formats, including Modern. It might not, it is still pretty new, and it has not a ton of hype, but it's 1 ticket and the demand is there. People are buying this card because they want to play with it. So at this buy-in, which is so low, I definitely grab at least a set or two just in case. You don't want to miss out if Charming Prince pops off. Moving on to overall sales by price, I have kind of a shock for you this week. Wrenn and Six, not number 1. Not even number 2. It is down to number 3, and that means that not a lot of people have been buying this powerful Planeswalker. Now, granted, this could be due to a couple of external factors, like, say, the fact that it's not included in the hottest deck in Modern right now that everyone's buying into, or maybe the fact that everybody's focused on Standard, or maybe both. I mean, there are underlying reasons why this price slip might have happened, but this is one of the first concrete signs I'm seeing that Wrenn and Six's price tag might actually be a lot softer than it looks. Now, I've been telling you to sell Wrenn and Six for a while now, simply because cards above the 100 ticket mark on MTGO, I don't know if it'll ever maintain that value for long, and the safe thing to do is just to sell, but I'm even further onto that bandwagon right now. Granted, it's possible we could be looking back next week and there's a major influx of demand and the price could be back up and all of that, but honestly, I'm selling Wrenn and Six at current retail. There's just too many red flags. And that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Chaz Andres, and I will see you again next Monday morning for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance.